when I'm working with elders, learning about culture, learning about their stories and ways of knowing the land, um, there's things that they tell us where they want studies done. And so there's been a lot of concern right now from community members about the spraying of herbicides in on their traditional foods, their medicines, and the general ecosystem. And so I kind of pushed to pick this particular plant, Labrador tea, because it grows around the world. It's a circumboreal plant, but particularly across Canada in the boreal forest. And it has an interesting history. And we know that First Nations use the plant still a lot. And it's a really general use plant. Like, so people pick lots of it, they make tea with it. It's kind of something some people drink daily. So we thought it was a great plant to look at because it's in the areas that are being sprayed, but also our results could be useful to a lot more people than just, the little area that we work in.
We don't just go uproot Labrador tea for like, oh, this is our sample. We also offer tobacco to the land, which is the traditional practice to offer something back to the land in return for what we're getting from it. So before we pick any plant, we offer tobacco to it. We also listen and work with community members and lands department, as I mentioned, to also understand areas of concern. When I say areas, I mean like literal parts of land. Like, oh, this is where someone has gotten notification that there might be spraying happening, or this might be scheduled for a clear cut. And so they get to decide where we sample. They get to steer the project. So essentially, the science is being informed by the knowledge of the people.
Community members always talked about dust on the berries. and sometimes the response that they would get from those concerns is like, we'll wash the berries, right? It's just the dust, right? Like, they're but especially in northern Alberta and Treaty 8 territory, people were concerned about dust coming off industrial roads, and mine sites, that sort of thing. So over time, it has been shown by scientists that we partnered with that heavy metals are a vector, or the dust is a vector for heavy metals. So that dust that community members were concerned about actually do transport heavy metals to the plants. Another example is there's an area where elders talked a lot about, to bring it back to moisture and the muskeg, where elders talked a lot about uh, an area where we were measuring the rainfall was lower, but the cranberries were really abundant. This place right here where Selena Harp is picking, actually. And uh and yeah, so it's just like literally they describe it as a blanket, like a red blanket on the landscape, and it is in that location. And um but the Q member said, well, it's the mist, it's the dew coming off the lake. And so in spite of there not being less rainfall, it was a place where the berries were really abundant because there was, a really high humidity when the berries needed it. So just like
Hmm.
these really interesting observations they have that we can then connect with science. I don't like to prove or disprove what elders are saying. I feel like that can be kind of a
Hmm.
problematic act, but to work with them in those concepts and incorporate them in our research and in our conversations, I think is really interesting and fruitful, pardon the pun.